Ladies and gentlemen, on Wednesday of last week, my colleague stood before you and asked you to find the defendant not guilty. Now, after listening to the evidence, deliberating among yourselves, you considered the evidence and you came to a unanimous decision. And we want you to know we respect your efforts and we respect your verdict. You will not hear anything today or in this phase of the trial other than the fact that we respect what you've been through and what you've decided in this case. The defense in this case, the evidence you will hear, is not an excuse. It will not be any justification. But what it will be, the evidence from the witnesses that you will hear today, will be an explanation. An explanation of the life and circumstances of the defendant, Adam Matos. By your verdict, you've determined that he is responsible for these 4 deaths. And again, we are not challenging your decisions. But it will be your decision now to decide when he dies. When God decides or when the government decides. Because by your decision, he will spend life in prison without the possibility of parole. And that's the stage that we start at this stage of the trial. As you were instructed and you've heard, your decision first is whether any aggravators exist. Now, we are contesting that, and I'm not going to argue it to you now. But you will hear probably through the testimony, and at least during the arguments of counsel, that it is our position that the aggravators either do not exist or are not sufficient to warrant the imposition of the penalty of death. And that will come later. What you will hear today, or maybe tomorrow, I don't know, is testimony from friends and family of Adam Matos. And they will tell you about his early life, about his upbringing, about the things that he had to endure or survive up to this point in his life. You will hear about his development or slow development during his life. And as you have heard, you have already seen some of the testimony and heard from his lips that Tristan was his whole world. And that if it wasn't for Tristan, he wouldn't be here. That you've already heard, and you will hear more from the witnesses in this case. But his dedication to Tristan, his attempts to be the father that he never had, and the other circumstances surrounding what happened in this case. At the end of the trial, we will ask you to consider that the death penalty is not appropriate in this case, and he should be sentenced to life in prison without parole. Thank you.